So right out of the gate, this is going to be the Alien Romulus spoiler video for the channel. So obviously this video is going to be filled with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet or you care about spoilers, this is not going to be the video for you. I already did a spoiler-free review of the movie that was the last video that I uploaded on my channel, as well as I'll link it down below in the description alongside my 5-hour Alien retrospective where I talked about the entire franchise up until Alien Romulus, because at the time of me making that video, there was no information about this movie. There was no trailer, there was no poster. All I knew is that Alien Romulus was a movie that was being made, and it was being directed by Fede Alvarez. And that gave me a lot of hope and a lot of excitement to see this film, and it became one of my most anticipated movies of the entire year, probably my most anticipated other than maybe Dune 2. Now, first, in order to understand this movie, let's talk about some of the intent that was going in behind it. Fede Alvarez came on board to direct, and this is a guy that I've appreciated his work ever since the Evil Dead remake, and I've said a bunch of times, you know, Evil Dead is my favorite horror movie, so the fact that there is a remake of Evil Dead, I should hate it, right? Like, this should be a movie that I despise, touching, you know, my favorite horror property of all time. But I came out of that movie loving it. I've also loved Don't Breathe. And the thing that I think Fede Alvarez is great at is creating atmosphere and tone and really giving you that immersion that you want into a movie. Like, it doesn't feel like it's filmed on a green screen. He's very, very dedicated to doing the practical effects and actually building sets and making locations. And these are things that I really appreciate, alongside the fact that Fede Alvarez himself is a fan of these things. Like, he grew up loving horror movies, particularly the properties that he's getting a chance to kind of dabble in and create his own version of, right? And you can definitely tell that in the process of this movie. I will say, just very quick overall, although I do like Alien Romulus a lot, I do have issues with it. And I'm going to get into the issues within this video, so this is not going to be like just a video full of praise, nor is it going to be a video that's full of hate. It's going to be very mixed, because I am very mixed on the movie, you know? I feel like ever since Aliens, every single Alien movie, whether it's Alien 3, Prometheus, Covenant, whatever it is, they've all been incredibly divisive, and this film is no exception. But you know what? After 12 years of defending Prometheus online and the fact that I love that movie, yes, I love Prometheus. I don't care what anyone says. I've done that for 12 years. So, you know what? I can stand up for Romulus a little bit here, too. But there were complications bringing us to Alien Romulus being created. At first, we were going to have Neil Blomkamp make an Alien 5, which was actually going to retcon Alien 3 and 4, so I don't think they were going to call it Alien 5. And he was going to bring Ripley back, and he was going to bring, you know, Sigourney Weaver and the characters from Aliens back, and this was a whole thing that was going to be made. And then Ridley Scott decided that he was going to make his Prometheus movie, which at the time, you know, and people will argue against this, but at the time, Prometheus wasn't necessarily created to be an alien movie. You know, that's why it's just called Prometheus, and it has its own storyline, it has its own characters, and it's separated by many, many years before the first Alien. Ridley Scott always wanted to make a movie that explained what the fuck the space jockeys were, and kind of exploring that whole aspect of this endless amount of creation and expansion of the universe, and that there's like creatures that we don't understand. That's the whole like thing that makes Alien, the first movie, so scary, is the fact that we have no idea what this creature is, how it operates, where it comes from, how it was created, how it works. Like, it's the fear of the unknown. And he was always, you know, fascinated by how that kind of relates to ideas in the universe, and the fact that, okay, there's a creature carrying these alien eggs. What is he carrying it for? Are they a weapon that he was using? Is it something he was disposing of? You know, all of these questions, right, that he finally wanted to answer. And Prometheus came out, and, you know, some people loved it. Very few people loved it. I'm one of the few. But a lot of people didn't like it. And so when there was a sequel to it, he was starting to blend it into the traditional sort of Alien side of the franchise. So it was a Prometheus sequel, but it was also now Alien Covenant, right? So now it was officially an Alien movie, and we get into the lore, the origins, and the creation of the xenomorphs themselves, right? Which, again, some people didn't like, but I thought was done very, very well. However, the ending of Alien Covenant still does not lead us to that crashed derelict ship in the beginning of Alien. So there was meant to be another movie to finish out the David storyline, to finish out the trilogy, whatever you want to call it. There was meant to be one more piece of the puzzle that we ultimately never got. And when Fede Alvarez came on to do Alien Romulus, the question was, you know, how much of Prometheus and Covenant is he going to incorporate into this movie? Is he going to make it completely his own? Is it going to be more like the first Alien? Is it going to be more like Aliens? And it seems as though, and people have called it an Alien Greatest Hits movie, which I definitely kind of do agree with, for better or worse. You know, there's positives and negatives to that. I feel like he did the best that he could to incorporate ideas from all of the different Alien films that people love. So not a lot of people like Prometheus and Covenant, but they have ideas. You see like the black goo. This is all spoilers. So we see the black goo. We have like the Prometheus ideas that are incorporated in this movie. And of course the ending, which, yeah, I'll get into. You know, that is all here. But at the same time, he has that claustrophobic vibe of the original Alien, also throwing in a lot of ideas of Alien Isolation, the video game, which is definitely apparent here. I don't think there's any denying it whatsoever. There are tons and tons of homages and references and even like shots that look like they're taken directly out of that game. Has to be 100%. And he doesn't really touch too much on Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection. Some people will say the creature at the end of Romulus kind of looks similar to the creature in Alien Resurrection. And there's definitely a similarity there, but they are very different at the same time. But I want to kind of go in order. I don't want to go all over the place. So we're just talking about the creation, the foundation, how Romulus came to be, and then I'll go point by point through the movie. Also, the name Romulus itself, I don't know too much about the mythology, but I do believe Remus and Romulus are brothers, and there's two parts of the spaceship. You know, one is called Romulus, one is called Remus. And just like Prometheus, you know, the spaceship was named Prometheus, and Prometheus gave, you know, the fire of the gods to the humans, advancing their technology, advancing their evolution, advancing what they could do. You know, if you have Romulus, which is meant to be, you know, this creation of something better, creation of Rome, and you're talking about expansion in the universe and colonization and all that kind of stuff, and the fact that they were researching the xenomorph and how it was created and its biology and its adaptability, and the fact that it's the perfect organism that was set up in the very first Alien, expanded on in Prometheus. It makes sense that the film was called Romulus, because you're talking about, you know, the Weyland-Yutani and the company trying to create something that would build this new empire, right? It's like the space expansion and creating these different colonies is not going the way that they want it to, and they need something to kind of advance the process. And the thing that is limiting them is humanity and our fragility, and the fact that we are not adaptable to live in space, and the fact that we've been having so many problems with this expansion and with this colonization. And I like that idea. And as much as Alien Romulus is a movie that is full of Alien greatest hits and things that we've seen before and ideas that we've seen before, I do like that it does expand some of the lore and some of the mythology of both Weyland-Yutani and the Prometheus, you know, serum. And we also get to see some aspects of the alien life cycle that we haven't seen before. We get to see a brand new creature introduced into the movie. So if somebody tells you that Romulus doesn't do anything new, I completely disagree. Now, maybe it doesn't do those new things in an amazing way, but it definitely does take a few big swings here and add some new ideas, taking elements of things that we've seen before. So I do appreciate it for that. But I don't believe that's the thing that this movie will be remembered for, just simply because I think the nostalgia kind of overpowers the new ideas. But there definitely is a lot of brand new ideas in here, or at least expansions on things that we've seen before. So I guess it does kind of play into the very beginning of the movie, so I'll get into it now. So in the opening credits, we see pieces and remnants of the Nostromo being taken into the Romulus ship. And the thing that massively surprised me is that they have the xenomorph from the original Alien, the actual xenomorph. It is now dead, but apparently it was able to survive in space. If I understand this right, remember, I've only seen the movie once at this point, so I'm sure there's more lines of dialogue that I'm not remembering 100%, but they did have the original alien xenomorph kind of like strung up. It was, you know, been experimented on and everything. They were able to find it. And this is the part that confused me, because I don't know how you would have gotten more face huggers and things of that nature out of it because it wasn't a queen. But then again, in the original Alien, there was a deleted scene where it was starting to reproduce on its own. So maybe that's just another method of its evolution, because there was never anything to say that that deleted scene was not canon. It's just that it's never been done in any other Alien movie. You know, there was like a whole scene where it was creating this hive, which we see the hive in Aliens. We see the people that were strung up in the hive, but it seems like in Aliens, the people were being strung up so that they could be used for the face huggers to jump onto to begin their reproduction. In the original Alien, there's a deleted scene where it looks like the people are becoming part of like the egg form themselves. It's really weird shit. But if I headcanon it enough, it could make sense in the sense that these creatures are the perfect organism, in that they have this adaptability that is unlike any other biology in the universe. Therefore, if there is no queen, they will still find a way to reproduce. So I guess I could understand that. There was also a brief thought I had, and this is probably completely wrong, that the way that we see all of the face huggers, that they're being kept in these little like glass, boxes, it reminded me a lot of the end of Alien Covenant, where David was beginning to put his face huggers in those little glass boxes. And I'm like, wait, did they find David's like hoard of, like, maybe they found not just pieces of the Nostromo, maybe they also found the Covenant as well at the end of that movie. I don't know. So maybe there's a little mix there of both. Maybe they found both, and maybe they've been collecting this shit over time and it's all accumulated. Probably not. It probably all comes from the original Alien, but I thought it would be cool if it was, part of the Covenant from David, because what happens with that? I want to know. So this also means that the xenomorph survives in space, which is interesting, or at least was able to be revitalized in some way. And they were trying to experiment on it and reverse engineer it. And this is all like top secret, kind of stuff here that they were doing with Weyland-Yutani. But the thing that I found interesting about it is that Weyland-Yutani, has always been the real antagonist of the entire Alien franchise. It's always the companies, the corporations, those that want to own everything, those that claim that they know better than other people do when it comes to the advancement of society and, science and research and having that kind of ultimate power, right? So we never really quite knew the specific reason as to why Weyland-Yutani was trying to get the alien, other than the fact that it's a new species, something to discover, something to experiment on, something to dissect. We never really knew quite the reason. But this movie provides us with a reason, and it ties itself back into Prometheus. So this is the new addition to the lore that this movie gives us, is it gives us a definitive reason as to why Weyland-Yutani was trying to get the alien. They were trying to reverse engineer its biology in order to make humans as adaptable as we could be for better space colonization. So in a way, they're doing something good for humanity, right? It's just like, that's the guys over it. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this so that we can better colonize the universe and help us adapt and help us evolve. And this is all great for humanity. But what has to happen in the process? Tons of people have to die. And, we're going to put our workers onto the ship and basically make them expendable. And that also ties into some of the themes of this movie, is that human beings are absolutely disposable, right? It's like they can replace you in a week. They don't really care. The companies and corporations that become this conglomerate that owns everything, which I guess you could say is ironic, because technically Disney bought Fox, which Alien is owned by Fox, and now it's owned by Disney, and Disney owns everything. So Disney is kind of like the Weyland-Yutani of the real world, maybe. I don't know. But they are perfectly willing to let people be disposable for the progress of what they are trying to achieve. So they didn't care about any of the scientists that were on board this ship, and after things went awry, they just left the ship out there, probably to not be discovered, probably because this was a secretive thing. And they're looking to just kind of sweep it under the rug, be like, well, that sucks, that was a failed thing, but, who cares? We still have billions and billions upon more dollars in order to fund further research and to try other things. And, maybe we'll find the creatures again someday in 30 more years, and when the movie Aliens takes place, and we'll try to grab a creature then. You know, it's like they don't care. All these people are completely disposable to them. So as a big Prometheus fan, I was really excited that they were using ideas that were featured in that movie in order to advance the storyline and make things kind of come together a little bit more. At least in terms of what Weyland-Yutani wanted, and the just the very ideas of Prometheus in itself. And the thing that I always found fascinating about Prometheus is just that, you know, it's this endless kind of experimentation of this biology. It's like the engineers' technology was biology. It's like the engineers figured out essentially how to create life, or how to manipulate life, how to get the ball rolling, how to create that spark. But there was just an endless amount of experimentation, and sometimes it went right, sometimes it went wrong, sometimes they were indifferent about it, like when it comes to humanity. But there was always that aspect of the drive of the DNA itself of what created humanity. So the engineers are constantly looking to experiment and create and build and go on to the next advancement of whatever it is. And that piece of that DNA got incorporated into humanity, which involved our advancement, kind of like Prometheus, giving us the fire so that we advance and that we create and we build technology. But we went into a different direction with it. We created AI and robotics and androids that exist within the alien universe. So instead of creating like biological life forms, you know, we created this AI, and this will also become our downfall in our real world. But in Alien, you know, the AIs, the robots have always been so interesting. And I do think that Andy, the AI in this movie, is the most interesting character by far. We've seen them be evil. We've seen them, you know, maliciously just work for the company without any regard for human life whatsoever. And then we've also seen characters like Bishop, who have surprised our characters and actually, you know, kind of came through and became, you know, like a heroic figure over time. So we've seen both ends of the spectrum. And what I do like about that at this point in the Alien movies is that you never know what direction it's going to go, because then you have characters like David, who are just so curious, you know, moving beyond that into the next realm of experimentation and the next realm of creation, and, you know, just that ultimate drive of creating and building and expanding that went from the engineers to humanity and then into AI and then into creation of the perfect organism eventually, which is the xenomorph. So it all just kind of comes and accumulates into this thing, this creature that is almost unkillable, you know, and has like these defense mechanisms of the acidic blood, and just endlessly evolves and can apparently survive anywhere, can find a way to reproduce no matter what. And it's just a terrifying concept of the fact that this thing can just keep going on and expanding, and it's so powerful, and they live in hives, and it's like a infestation, and it's just like truly one of the most terrifying concepts that you could come up with in like the history of movies. So anyways, let me continue. I'm going to get into more of my positives, and then I'm going to go into the negatives. So I know I've been praising it a lot. I do have a lot of negatives that I want to talk about also, but let me just get through the things that I really enjoyed about it. When it comes to the androids, that's the mixed bag, all right? Because you have Andy, who at first, I didn't really like what they were doing with him. I didn't really like the whole like malfunctioning. He seemed like he was kind of like mentally slow kind of thing that they were doing with him. I was like, this is just kind of weird. Like, what are you trying to say with this? Like that, I didn't really understand that at first. But when the movie started going a little bit further, and they put the other chip in him that kind of gives him an upgrade, you know, and he starts acting a little bit more confident, a little bit more sure of himself, starts speaking a little bit more clearly, and then also has this new prime directive of the company that chip has been implanted. Well, then I kind of understand that it's like, oh, okay, so you're kind of giving this android the choice, or do androids have a choice at all? So it really is, they really are just tools working for a corporation, right? But his original prime directive was to make sure that Rain was safe, or to do the best thing for Rain. And then after the upgrade, well, the thing that overrode that was doing the best thing for the company. But is he still the same person he was before? Are they even a person to begin with? And so it creates all of these complications of, you know, how human are these AI? This is the same thing, same kind of themes present in Prometheus and Covenant with David. It's like, you know, how much is the programming, and how much of it is what their capacity to learn is over time? And at what point do you have enough capacity to learn and to create that you're just as valid in your existence than as a human is, or maybe even more so, you know? So I liked what they were doing with this character. I think that they did take it back a little bit towards the end when she took the chip out. I think that it would have been better if it stayed that way and he had to make the choice. So that kind of bummed me out. But overall, I like what they did with the character. The other theme that I picked out that I really liked about this movie is how much these characters were struggling in life. They are stuck on this colony and they are just unable to advance. They're unable to escape because they just can't afford it. And they keep working and working and working. And they are just stuck because no matter how hard they work, they just cannot make enough money to do what they need to do. Part of the entire premise of this movie is that these group of young people, they are stuck here and they're going to be stuck here for a very long time. But they find this kind of floating ship that they know has the cryo, like, sleep pods in the ship. And if they can just go up and get the sleep pods, you know, then they could go off world and be able to survive the journey, right? Because that's the reason why they can't leave, because they're too far away from anything else. So it's going to take years and years and years. I think it's going to take like 9 years or 12 years or something. So it's like, you know, they wouldn't have enough food. They wouldn't have enough rations. They'd have to wait 9 years of their life. So they're just incapable of leaving. But if they got these sleep pods, then they could just go to sleep, you know, wake up instantly and be there. So, you know, it's worth the risk for them in order for them to leave. What I liked about it was that I feel like it was one of the only aspects of the movie that really says something about, I think, how a lot of people feel right now. You know, I think that with a lot of things going on in our real world, I feel like a lot of us do feel very stuck, that no matter how hard we try or how hard we work or how much money we make, it doesn't matter because something else always comes up and something, you know, there's always something that breaks down, or always something, some giant bill to pay, or some giant piece of debt that you have to work on, or, you know, you're just alone in the world. You don't have anybody else to help you, you know, except maybe an Android friend, you know. And I feel like a lot of people can resonate with this idea of just like, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I struggle, I just can't escape. And then if you found that shining light, say, hey, all you got to do is go up here and steal this and you're free. You're home free. All you got to do is this one risky mission. I think a lot of people would do it. I think it makes sense for the characters in the movie. And I think if we just, you know, if we can relate that to maybe things that are happening in modern times with just how difficult life is and how expensive everything is and how hard it is to break through and do anything in life, I think that it makes a lot of sense, you know, as for the reason why the characters would do this. Now, the characters themselves in the movie, I have a lot of issues with, but I'm getting my positives out before I go into the negatives. Now, beyond story and lore purposes, the things I liked about this movie, like, were the aesthetic. The production design was amazing. I loved the practical sets, practical locations. I loved how the aliens were filmed. The xenomorphs in the movie, they weren't so in your face, and I was a little bit afraid of this. But throughout the film, a lot of the xenomorphs are filmed kind of within shadows, or they're lurking on the walls, or you see like a close-up shot of the xenomorph face, but you don't, you know, linger on it too long. I feel like the aliens were filmed very, very similarly to how they were filmed in the movie Aliens. You know, there's obviously nods and references, which I'll get into that. But I appreciated him for doing that, because he could have just had the aliens on full display the entire time, but because he was trying to make it more horror-centric, they were definitely reserved in how often they showed the xenomorphs, which impressed me. And I'm usually the kind of guy that says, fuck it, show me the monster, right? Like, I'm not somebody that thinks what you don't see is always scarier than what you do see. But when it comes to creatures like this that are lurking in the dark, and you're going down these, you know, corridors that are dimly lit, and you're not sure what's going to be around every corner, and it's more about the immersion of the scene. It's more about, like, you hear the sounds of the spaceship, and you hear the clinking chains, and you hear, you know, the windows kind of do that, you know, boom, boom thing, you know, when something big happens. It's just like, it's all about the atmosphere. And like I said, Fede Alvarez nails atmosphere. He nailed it in Evil Dead. He nailed it in Don't Breathe. And he nails it here also. They also do some really creative things with the horror sequences. I did like the scene where they were in the room with the facehuggers and they find that the facehuggers kind of find you by body temperature, so they increase the temperature of the room. I thought that was a creative idea. Alongside the zero gravity and utilizing the acid blood to burn holes into the upper decks to get through. I thought that was also a really creative idea as well. Also takes the aliens themselves a little bit out of their element because they weren't expecting there to be no gravity whatsoever, so that was cool. So a lot of the sequences, I like the scene where Isabella Merced's character, she's the pregnant woman, where she was like kind of crawling underneath, you know, the grate, and you could like see the alien kind of vaguely in the background and stuff like that kind of stuff. I love when you see, you know, I love shots where the character doesn't see the horror, but the audience does. You know, it's like the characters in the foreground, like crawling and looking around, and then you see like the creepy shadow shit in the background. That kind of stuff, that's my like favorite kind of scare. You know what I mean? Like fuck jump scares. I love the creepy, like you're looking into the background of the shot. You're just like, what the fuck is that? You know, that's my favorite kind of scare. Oh, but also a cool thing with expansion on the lore, we see a little bit more of the life cycle of the xenomorph. Now, usually after the chest burster comes out and runs off, we don't see it again until it's a full-grown xenomorph, which only takes, you know, every movie makes it faster and faster. You know, the first movie takes like, you know, actually the first movie does it pretty quickly too. But what was cool here is we see like this cocoon on the wall that looks straight up like a dripping vagina. Maybe I've just seen some weird vaginas in my life, but that's what it looked like to me. It was this, like, we see the skin of the chest burster, that it shed its skin, and it fastened this like seriously like vagina looking cocoon on the wall that the guy puts like the stun gun up into. And I thought that was cool because we've never seen that before. We've never seen that stage of the alien life cycle. We always assumed it was just a chest burster that just grew. But there's different stages. It sheds its skin. It creates a cocoon. It gets birthed out of the... Literally look like a child, like head first coming out of the womb, like coming out of the vag. Like literally the birth of the xenomorph is what it looked like. And so that goes right along the line with like H.R. Giger's original designs, like all the weird hypersexual imagery and like the sexual themes of Alien just in itself, like something literally raping your face, impregnating you against your will, the birthing of it, you know, that entire process. And the alien head looks like a goddamn dick. Like it's all there, you know, it's all right in your face. And I thought that little extra step, that little extra stage that we've never seen before was a cool addition. But the best part of this movie for me, and the thing that made me really like it, but I was enjoying the film. I enjoyed the expansions on the lore. I enjoyed the themes. I enjoyed the scenes. But I think if the movie would have ended without that new creature, I would have just thought the movie was all right. I would have been like, that was a fun, enjoyable movie. Not one of my favorites, but that was all right. But when that scene happened, I know some people are going to hate it, and I understand, but for me, it worked so well. I was so happy that they did this, that they went into this direction, and for me, this was the scariest part of the movie. This was creepy as fuck. This was one of the creepiest looking creatures, I think because it was very human, right? It just is this, like, tall, lanky, humanoid creature, like... some people have been comparing it to the newborn at the end of Alien Resurrection. They're both alien-human hybrids, sure. Well, actually, this one isn't even really an alien-human. This is different. This is completely different. This is more of Prometheus style. But anyways, they're totally different because the Alien Resurrection newborn, which I do like and think is cool, is a little bit more goofy. This thing, to me, was fucking terrifying. The shot where you first see it born, and it just is like, dude, like Andy looks behind him, and you just see this this tall, like 7-foot humanoid looking creature, this gray skinned, bald, weird alien engineer Prometheus thing. It's engulfed in shadow, and you can barely see it, and it's just sitting there like, was that? Like, it just like I couldn't, dude. I swear to God, that scene, like, freaked me the fuck out in the best way, all right? Like, that was pure horror in, like, its purest form. Like, I can't even put it into words. I was so happy that he did it. And it worked in multiple different ways because they have some of the Prometheus goo serum, and it's not even like the original. Like, this is the reverse engineered version of the serum, right? Like, this is not what the engineers created. This is what humans have found and manipulated from the research. So it's like an offshoot version of it, just like all these biological things are, just like the neomorphs that David created in Covenant, and all the different versions of these creatures. You know, the more that you manipulate the biology, the more it changes over time. That's the whole idea behind, you know, Prometheus and Covenant. It's just this constant evolution and change, these minor little changes that make a big change later on. Now, in Prometheus, David gives, I forget, Numi Rapace's character, her boyfriend, Elizabeth Shaw, he gives her boyfriend some of the goo, and then they fuck, and then she gets pregnant with it. And that's that whole terrifying, like, abortion scene with the squid creature or whatever. That was all a result of that black goo, right? And this movie has a version of that, but it's different though at the same time. It's different for two reasons. One is because this is a more of like a reverse engineered version of the goo. And then also Isabella Merced's character was already pregnant. So you already had a fetus in there that got kind of manipulated and tainted and, evolved, like a mixture, like mutated, I guess. What is the right word? I don't know what the right word is for it, but it like combined with the DNA of her fetus and created this brand new creature. When she first started like having the problems, I thought like maybe we were going to get another squid creature from Prometheus, but then I realized the differences here because Shaw couldn't get pregnant at first, right? So that was a whole different thing. So what happens when you incorporate that DNA when you are already pregnant? Well, you get whatever this fucking thing is going to be called. I don't know if there's an official name for it yet, but holy shit, this thing was terrifying. You know, the little like embryonic sac like comes out, blood spews everywhere. We get this little human thing in the sac, and you're like, what the fuck is that? And then it grows at the same rate an alien does. And I thought this thing was terrifying, dude. I love this thing. Again, I know some people won't like it. Some people will think it's stupid. Some people think it's corny, whatever. It's a risk. But, you know, all the Alien movies take big risks, you know? And they're all very divisive. You know, Alien 3, which is a movie I don't really like, but I know a lot of people love Alien 3, right? Prometheus, again, is a movie I do really like. I know a lot of people don't like it. Alien Resurrection had the newborn, which is a new creature. Covenant had the neomorphs, which is a different kind of creature. You know, even Aliens, which everyone loves, introduced the Queen. So every Alien movie, pretty much, except for 3, but even that, you know, shows a different version of the xenomorph. Every Alien movie adds a new variation of the creature. And so this movie is just doing that same thing, you know? And just like the other movies, it's going to be a very divisive idea, right? But I thought it was so creepy. I thought it gave this movie its own identity, which it was struggling with until that point. And also, I just like the horror aspect of it. As a horror fan and somebody that loves seeing creepy shit in the dark, I just thought it was done very, very well. So yeah, that was by far my favorite aspect of the movie. I thought that was great. I wanted more of it. You know, I wanted the creature like suckling on its mother, like absorbing her blood. Like, what the fuck, dude? That was, dude, that was great. That was so good. That was so good. So good. But now I have negatives. I know this video is going to be long. I'm sorry, but there's a lot to talk about. I'm a huge Alien fan, so like there's always, my brain's going everywhere. Like there's so much to talk about. But now I got to get into my negatives. So if you thought that I was praising this movie to hell so far, well, I was. But now I got issues. Now I got issues, all right? I can't say that the movie's a masterpiece. and I can't say it was one of the best of the best because it does have issues, and the issues are strong. Let's start with this. The characters. Okay. So I'm a big character person when it comes to storytelling. I think that if you have great characters, you could literally have them sitting around a dinner table and that could be the whole movie as long as I enjoy the characters. I want to be able to hang out with them. There was a moment in this movie, it was once they got to the Romulus ship and they were, searching for the pods, and they found the cryo sleep chambers, but the chambers didn't have enough energy, so they were going and searching for more energy for them, yada, yada. I remember watching that part in the theater and thinking like, oh no, I don't give a shit about any of these characters. The horror is about to start, and I don't care about them. I like the idea, like I said, the idea of these people struggling that can never afford to leave, that are stuck working for this company, that are, disposable, low income, oppressed people. Like I get the themes, and I like the themes. I enjoy the idea. But the actual characters themselves, I was not liking, except for Rain, the main character. But even at that point in the movie, I thought she was all right. I thought, okay, Rain is all right, but everybody else I don't care about. And even Isabella Merced, who is an actress I really like, and I also think she's like one of the most gorgeous women on the planet. Even her character was like, okay, her character is basically, I am the pregnant girl, There's like, I am the pilot, I am the pregnant girl, I am the ex-boyfriend, and I am the asshole. Like, those were the characters, and I just wasn't on board with them, and I didn't care about them, and I like all of the characters in the original Alien. They feel very grounded, they feel like a real crew, they feel like coworkers. Obviously, Aliens has great, great characters that all have their own individual personalities and quirks. Like, I felt like these characters, they lacked personality. They didn't have things that made them identifiable, except for those, like, general things that I mentioned. Like, he's the asshole character because he's an asshole. They do add, like, an android had to make a decision that, resulted in his family's death. Tragic, but, like, we don't get it through him. There's nothing there, it's just, anyways. It was a real bummer for me. It was a real bummer for me because I wanted to love them, and I really didn't. And so when the horror started happening, it definitely took a lot of tension out of the movie for me because I didn't care if these characters lived or died. And in fact, what I was waiting for is just to see the kill scenes at a certain point, which is something that I love if I'm watching Friday the 13th or like Nightmare on Elm Street, but not something I want from Alien, because even though the first Alien you could say is a slasher film, it's never been a traditional slasher franchise. It's always had rich, engaging characters, and I didn't feel that in this movie until a bit, later on, with Rain getting better over time and Andy getting a lot better over time. Once that upgrade thing went into his head, I was like, okay, I understand what you're doing with this character. Thank you. He was by far the best character in the movie. He was by far the best actor in the movie. And up until they removed the upgrade at the end, didn't like that. Up until that point, I liked what they were doing with him because they were giving him that ambiguity of will he, won't he? Like, is his time that he spent with Rain going to be able to override his prime directive of helping out the company? I thought that was a compelling idea, but then they undid it. And that's what pissed me off about it. It's like, keep going with it. Make the android make the choice. See how far this AI has advanced. Like, let's make him do it. Like, does he have a choice? That's the compelling thing about it, is does he have a choice? Is he only compelled to go along with this programming, or does he have a choice to still put Rain as his top priority? But then they undo it, and it pissed me off. The other thing that pissed me off was the use of dialogue from the other movies. I hate this trope so much. This is one of my it might be my most, like, #1 biggest pet peeve with movies, with sequels, with reboots, is when you use a famous line of dialogue from a previous movie again in a new movie, but without the context. And the only reason you're doing it is just for fan service. There were a couple in this movie, but the biggest sin to me was the "stay away from her, you bitch" line. It was lame. It sucked. I hated that moment. I hated that moment so much. Even when he was saying it, I sat there in the theater. I'm just like, don't fucking say it. Don't fucking say it. You don't need to say it. I hate it because it takes you out of the movie. It wrecks the immersion. You know, it reminds you that you're watching a movie. And also, "stay away from her, you bitch" is probably the most famous line from the entire Alien franchise. Like, the entire series. And it comes at, like, the climax, the peak moment of Aliens. It's a hype moment. It's a cheer moment. It's a memorable moment. It can't be redone. Especially not in this way. I hate when movies do this. I hate it so much. They do it in the Alien vs. Predator Requiem movie a bunch of times. There's like, "get to the chopper," and there's like, you're ugly, you're an ugly motherfucker" from Predator. I hate it. I hate it. I hate when movies do that. I fucking hate it. Is there a way to do it? Maybe. But it just always rubs me the wrong way. It brought the whole movie down a point for me. I was like, you know what? I can't. Like, I can't, dude, because the reason is because the characters in the movie shouldn't know about those characters or those lines. So the lines have to come out organically. It has to make sense for that moment, for that character to say, and to say the same exact line with the same exact inflection in the same exact kind of moment just doesn't make any sense. I am more bought into the idea of the strange Prometheus goo biology. I'm more bought into the idea of colonization in space and AI robots and xenomorphs. I can buy into that. But I can't buy when you say a specific line from a previous movie that's already famous. Doesn't make any sense. Hate it. I also hated the use of Ian Holm's persona and voice for the new android character. So they go into Romulus and there's an android that's been cut in half, and they're able to reactivate it to figure out what was going on, and it just so happens to look exactly like Ash from the first Alien film. Now, it has been established in the Alien universe that android designs are used multiple times. We have Walter and David from Alien Covenant. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that there's another android that looks just like Ash. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly believable. But Ian Holm is no longer here to play that role. And what they did was use this CGI resemblance of him that was very jarring when 90% of the movie is practical effects. And now you have this CGI, past actor that looks incredibly fake, takes you out of the movie. It's one of those things, just like repeating the line of dialogue, that takes you out of the movie. And I just sat there thinking, like, you couldn't have gotten another actor to maybe like resemble him if that's what you wanted to do, or just use a different android. Actually, what I want them to do is to use the Working Joes from Alien Isolation. I thought that would be cool. That's an Alien Isolation only thing so far, but I'd like to see it in the movies. But anyways, completely took me out of it. I thought it was completely unnecessary. If they had like Ash's head, or something, that would be stupid too. But at least that would make more sense for it to be Ian Holm. I don't like this idea of digitizing, past actors and, forcing and cramming them back into films after they're gone. It's just like, I don't know, something about it rubs me the wrong way. I didn't like it. I don't know if that was Fede Alvarez's idea, or maybe even Ridley Scott was like, yeah, go ahead, do that. I don't know. But whoever idea it was, I thought it was awful. An awful choice. Horrendous choice. And it really, once again, brought the movie down a few notches for me. So overall, I'm very mixed on it. There are things that I love about the movie, as in, some of the expansion on the lore, some of the ideas, some of the themes, and of course, the final horrific sequence with the new alien creature at the very end of the movie that I thought was done phenomenally well. I'll probably just watch that scene on its own a bunch of times when it comes out on Blu-ray. But beyond that, I do have issues with it. Like I said, I just don't really care about a lot of the characters here. I didn't like, the blatant fan service of, you know, reiterating the same lines from previous movies, or even lines like, oh, these guns are used by the colonial marines and stuff. Like, nah, do you need it? Can't we just see the gun and know that? You know, there are times in like modern movies where I feel like they treat their audience like we're so dumb. And to be fair, probably a lot of us are, even me, even me. But like in that instance, I would have understood it, right? Like, why do we need to say these guns are used by the colonial marines? Why can't we just pick the gun up and us as Alien fans be like, that's the gun, you know? Can't we just know that? Same thing seeing like the Prometheus goo. Like, do we need to call it like the Prometheus or something? Like, you know, can't we just see it and from being fans know like, oh, you know, that's the thing that bothers me. You know, that's the thing. It's just like when they like spoon feed it to you. It's like there's a moment in the Ghost in the Shell live action, which I mostly like, but they explain right in the beginning like, oh, your consciousness, you know, your ghost is inside this body, which is your shell. It's just like, can't we try to understand what the title means just from watching the movie? Do we literally have to have somebody explain it to us right in the beginning? Maybe that's the reason why I like Prometheus and Covenant a lot too, is because there's a lot that is left to the imagination for you to fill in the gaps. And I like that kind of stuff. I like figuring movies out. You know, I like trying to understand what a filmmaker is saying. I like trying to understand the themes on my own. I don't like when movies, you know, spoon feed you everything and explain every aspect to you. It's part of the reason why I love the first Alien so much, is because there's so much that is unknown. But when you go into Prometheus and you start to explain it, I like filling in the gaps of knowledge. I like filling in, you know, the parts that you don't see. It's like, oh, cool, we got all of this new lore, but that adds all these, you know, it's like every answer that we get gives us 10 more questions. And to me, that's like some of the best of storytelling. That's what it should do, because like Alien, like Prometheus, like these ideas, we live in this ever expansive universe and we're never going to know everything. It's like everything we discover, there's a bunch more pieces of information that we need to have full context that we don't have. It's like there's always something new to discover. So when movies just like give you all that information and say things blatantly and say things outright and repeat lines from past movies, like that's the thing that bothers me, because it makes me feel like they feel like I'm dumb. I am dumb, but I don't want them to make me feel like I'm dumb. But on the other hand, we have some awesome scary sequences. We have great, you know, production design and set design and practical effects and animatronics and puppets and all this stuff I love in horror movies. We got great that great face hugger sequence, 2 great face hugger sequences actually, and like so I can't really be too mad at it, because the movie did give me a lot that I liked, but it also gave me a lot that annoyed me. So I'm very conflicted on it. Like, overall, I really, really enjoyed it. Overall, I really, really like it. Like I said, I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I think I'm going to keep my rating there. Maybe I would move it down to like a 7.5, but like, I'll keep it at an 8. I'll keep it at an 8 for now. What I do think, overall, is that this movie is a great theater experience. So whether you loved it, whether you thought it was just okay or not, I think that it's definitely a movie that you want to see in the theater. You know, you want to feel that immersion. You want to have all the lights out, not be distracted by your phone. You know, you want to be inside of this spaceship and feel the threat lurking around every corridor, you know. So I would say see it in the theater. Obviously, I just spoiled the entire movie for you, but if you haven't seen it in the theater yet, I would recommend it. All right, guys, so that's all I can think to say about the movie as of right now. I'm sure as time goes on with multiple watches, I'll have more to say about it. But as of right now, those are my thoughts. Those are my positives, my negatives. That's how I feel about it. I think that overall, it's a really good movie. I did enjoy the majority of it. There are some things about it that really, really irk me. But overall, I think there is way more good than there is bad, and it's definitely a movie that I'll want to see again and want to watch multiple times. And definitely not the worst. There's plenty worse Alien movies out there. I'll say that. Thank you for watching this video, guys. Please comment all things Alien Romulus down below. This is the full spoiler video, so spoil all you want in the comments. Talk about the things you loved about it, things you hated about it. If you have positives and negatives like I did, if you just loved everything about it, or if you just despised the movie. All I ask is that we be respectful. Just for some reason, I feel like some people get very, very emotional when it comes to other people's movies opinions. And at the end of the day, it's just a fucking movie opinion. Like, who gives a shit? You know, who cares? Who cares what I have to say? Who cares what you have to say? We're just having fun here. We're just talking about things that we like. So even if we disagree, and that's perfectly fine. It's fine to disagree, but just be like respectful about it. You know, just respectfully disagree. Try not to get into like ad hominems, like calling people names and shit like that. Like let's we can have discourse and we can have debate, but let's try to be civil about it. Thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Please give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have a Patreon and channel memberships you can sign up for, or just like the videos and comment. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.